Great. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Sarah Oxley. I am a social emotional learning coach in the MSD of Wayne Township. And I want to welcome you to our first annual Social, Emotional, and Behavioral Wellness Blitz. Thank you for being here with us today. And we hope you are able to walk away with some really important, valuable information that you can infuse in your classroom when school begins. Just a few housekeeping items. Everyone will be muted throughout the presentation. So please utilize that chat box to put in any questions that you might have. And then at the end of the session, if there's any questions that Kara hasn't answered, permitting time, we'll go ahead and have those answered. There's also a closed captioning option, just so you know, if you like to read and have that presented, you can just click
Sarah,
that.
I actually have closed captions going on the presentation that are recording.
Oh, perfect.
I opened up Google Slides behind it to do that.
Oh yeah, gosh, I see it now. Okay, how unobservant of me. Okay, well then you do not have to hit that button. At the end of the session, please make sure that you either use the link or the QR code for an opportunity to provide feedback. And now I'm pleased to present to you Kara Geff, who will be discussing student regulation.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm so excited to be sharing this. It has such a huge place in my heart. I just finished year 30 of teaching, all in special education. And the last 19 years were in junior high, 7th and 8th graders, and had lots of self-regulation issues with students. My first 10 were in K through 6 resource teaching. And then I just changed in January. I'm now teaching at White's Junior Senior High in MSD of Wabash County in their alternative credit recovery program, which is called the CAR program. So I love it and I have a lot of experience with it, and I want to just share the wealth with you guys. So you can get the presentation. Sorry, every time I touch the slide, that thing pops over, and I just want it to stay hidden. Apparently I can't keep it hidden. Oops. So I'll back that up a minute. So if you want to take a picture or get that, and I think somebody put it in the chat too, if you scroll up. So you can go to that link and get a copy of the presentation. There are lots of links inside the presentation that will save you time. And I'm going to go as quickly as possible to give you as much as I can in the 50 minutes or so that we have together. So this is me, and the slide's just in here in case you want to get in contact with me at some time, ask questions, brainstorm. I just love to do that. So I'm on Twitter at Kara Geff, and there's my email. And then I also, just about 2 months ago, started a Facebook group called Thriving in SPED, and we've grown to over 600 people in 2 months. I'm so excited about it, and people are so excited about the sharing that's going on in there. It's basically the focus of my group is for people to share strategies to help us thrive, to save time without sacrificing effectiveness. That's my big thing. I don't want to learn anything new that's not going to help me save time or not be effective. So I'd like us to start by answering this question. And if you got the presentation, you can probably click on that. If you don't, you can just type that into a tab so that you can take this poll. And I just like to say in your head what you're thinking it's going to look like next year in 2021. Do you expect the number of students that you have with difficulty self-regulating might be about the same as in years previous? Do you think it might be less? Do you think it might be more? And as you all are voting, it should tabulate real time. I practiced it yesterday, so let's hope. I see some people putting in the chat, that's fine. But if you go to this link at the bottom, it'll actually let you vote. Or if you click on vote, you'll be able to vote. It will take you right to the section to vote. And then I should be able to update it, but I'm not sure if it's anybody's went there because it's not updating properly for me. But from what I'm seeing in the chat, looks like everybody is saying more. And that was kind of the point of that. I think we're all in that same place where we realize that even kids that weren't having self-regulating issues prior to COVID-19 are going to come back with this and may have self-regulating issues, as well as those ones who already did have those concerns, it's going to be elevated. I mean, basically, we did a horrible thing, not from the fault of ours, but the school that's supposed to be the safe place for kids, a place they can go and they can count on being the same. Their teachers are there. And even if their home life is not the greatest, they come to school and they have that time where they get some relief from that. And without warning, we yank that rug out from under everybody. And so even those of us in the best of situations and our kids with the best of home life, it's been a struggle for it. It's different. We've all survived this traumatic experience and are continuing to survive it because it's not over. We don't know which of our kids have lost a loved one to COVID and whose parents are so scared themselves that they're putting that fear into their children. And then there's other families who are like, hey, this is no big deal. And their kids are going to bring that back with them. And so we don't know what we're going to see. And the need to have that self-regulation is going to be more and more present. So one of the things I say about behavior, which self-regulation is a behavior, is we have to teach it explicitly the same way we need to teach everything else. We don't start expecting kids to understand shapes just because we show them a bunch of shapes. They don't know the vocabulary of shapes if we don't tell them triangle, circle, square at some point in time. And we need to teach kids the vocabulary of self-regulation the same way that we teach the vocabulary for any other subject. And the vocabulary we're talking about is the words they need to express their feelings and the words they need to express what's happening in their brain and with the parts of their brain. And the more they can understand the vocabulary, just that in itself helps them self-regulate. So the first part of the session here, I'm going to share a bunch of resources on where you can go to get good lists of words for kids because they struggle. They just say they're mad all the time. And we need to give them the perfect word. I had a student last year, an 8th grader, and he would come to my room and his face would be red and he'd be stomping around, pacing the room, couldn't talk to anybody. And anybody who looked at him thought that he was angry at whoever was trying to talk to him because he's yelling at them if they said, hey, can I help? And anger is what all of the adults were perceiving from his behavior. But the first time I put a set of words in front of him, and I said, tell me the words you feel. And he pointed to frustrated, and he pointed to it hard and over and over. And he was like, he said, that's what I feel. That's what I feel. But he couldn't find that word. And once we knew it was frustration, we could help him figure out where the frustration came from. So I have several lists I'm going to pop up. And the first one is just good and bad feelings or pleasant and unpleasant feelings. It's quite an extensive list. So I use maybe older elementary kids, middle school, high school, because the list is huge. It'd be hard for younger kids to be able to manage. But you can see how many words there are for each of these pleasant words and unpleasant words, and finding that exactly specific word that a student needs is going to be very helpful for them. So even just giving them something like a pre-made printout is great. But what I like to do with my students is give them the list when they're calm, not when they're frustrated. In the teachable moment, I'll give them a list similar to this one. And we'll go through the words and say, have you ever felt like this? Have you ever felt confident? Have you ever felt reliable? Or are there any of these words you don't know what means when we read through them? And so we'll pick like 5 or 6 from each column that the students know what mean, or I've taught them what they meant because they need that word in their vocabulary. So they get 3 to 6 from each column. And those are the words they're going to have in their own personal little booklet, or I like to put things on ring binders for kids. I'm hoping you can see this. And so I have these. We make some of the kids just like to carry it on a key ring, and they'll have just a few words from each level of feeling that they can have. Good isn't always good. It doesn't mean the same as calm. Good could mean quiet. Good could mean surprise. Good can mean clever. And so we need to start getting those kids' vocabularies built up. And then the same thing with the unpleasant ones, which are the ones that mean something to you when you hear them. And like when I get to a word like dejected, and typically kids are like, I'm not really sure what that is. Is it like depressed? And I'd be like, Well, it's similar to depressed, but dejected is you are so down in the dumps, like you're just barely moving forward and you just don't even know if you can do anything. They're like, oh, yes, I've felt that before. And so teaching them those words helps them know how to say what they feel, which is a huge step for them to be able to self-regulate. And then this list is one that I've put up for maybe middle elementary, that kind of age. It's much smaller. One thing I do like about it is it has some blanks where kids can come up with their own words. Like if they say, I'm feeling like this, and they call it, even if it's a made up word, if that word means something to them, it needs to be on their list. And they need to be able to use it to express how they feel. But we only have 5 categories of words here for them to choose from. And so it's a smaller list for younger, or depending on the cognitive level of your kids, you have to decide what's best for your kids. And then this is one of my favorite lists. It's huge. It just goes on and on, it seems. But the reason I like it is because we've got happy and then an emoji and a sentence. And it's this for every word. So a lot of kids don't even know the names of the words they want to say, but they could say, oh, that's how I feel like right now. And they can point to that image of that emoji character and see that. And there's simpler ones, and they might not mean suspicious if they do this. It doesn't matter that they know that this face is suspicious, but they can say, I feel like this. And then you can ask them, is that suspicious? And like, no, I don't feel suspicious. Maybe that one's worried to them. It needs to match what it means for the kid, not what it means for the adults in their lives. I mean, obviously we have to work with some kids that have difficulty understanding what certain emotions look like. We don't want to pick happy when we're sad, and we have to work with kids with that, but some aren't that obvious. I might pick this picture for suspicious, and to me, it's just like, I'm just feeling kind of so-so today. I'm just okay. It doesn't mean I'm suspicious. So we need to identify what those images mean to the kids and the vocabulary with them. But as you can see, the list, it just goes on and on. So it's a great place to start with some kids, to give them some understanding of feeling words, how they're used in a sentence, and then the pictures. And then the last list I have is an intensity list. And this is where you're going to start helping kids understand that all the words for happy don't have the same intensity to them. And so doing some forward instruction on helping them realize that, okay, if I'm happy and I say I'm good, that's less happy than if I say I'm ecstatic or excited, elated. And so helping kids to understand how others use those words for intensity, just like voice tone we use in reading. We don't just say, when we teach kids to write, we don't want them to say he said, she said, they said, we said. That's boring writing. We want them to say they shouted, they whispered. And so we want that tonal language to come across when they choose a word to express their feeling as well. So if I'm using the intensity list to have kids choose, with my upper level kids, that's what I would do. I have them just pick their 2 that they think they would use the most from each level, and sometimes just 1 from each level. If it just depends on the kids' experience and what I think they can manage as far as the number of words. Or if they say, no, I like 4 from here, then I'm gonna have them 4. So nothing's set in stone. It has to be student specific and individualized. But I love that there's several categories and they're all broken down like that. And then what I like to do is just in person with kids, I would have a mat out that has like yellow, green, and purple. If I'm using this to teach it, then I might use this on my practice page. And we'll cut these words out and practice putting them in the intensity level of chart. And then digitally, I've made a slide presentation that has that as well. And if somebody reminds me toward the end, I will pop into that and share that as well. I think I don't have it linked to this presentation yet, but I'll share the link for that slide. And it's just a mat where you can sort words. You can put however many words you want, and kids can drag and drop them to practice working on the intensity. So it's helping kids from several ways around. Then when you scroll down this, I love it even more because now we have so many faces right away that we can see at once. We're not having to scroll through our turn pages. And when somebody is dysregulated, the less they have to look at, the better. So I will have this up on the screen. I'll just like, let me know which face, how are you feeling right now? And I can get a picture of how that kid's doing. And I will do the same thing with these emojis and have them practice sliding them to the intensity chart to help us realize that demure is not the same as blissful, is a better way to say happy. Anxious and terrified, they're different, they're not the same. Exhausted and tired. And so that intensity thing comes in play all the time. And we have to intentionally give kids the ability to figure out the right word for how they feel so that they can use that when expressing it later. But this list just goes on, and I just love it. So, oops, sorry about that. I love to play games with kids, and who knows, remote or if we're back in person and we're trying to do some sort of social distancing and not share things, that's going to be a little bit harder to do when we're going to have to think through how to do it. But there is, like, if you have dice and everybody can have their own dice, if you can print out and they can fold and make their own dice, or maybe they have enough that they each can have one and you can sanitize them at the end. Jenga, a little bit more difficult, but I love to have the list of emotion words or the pictures of the emojis. And so every play they take on a game, they have to draw a card and express that feeling with their face. Or sometimes they would match an emoji with the feeling word. Just depends on the group and their level. But you can play headbands by making your own. They can make their own little headbands. They don't have to be the game pieces that you have to sanitize. But those are my favorite ways to do it. And online, we can come up with ways to do that as well. You can make a slide presentation where every slide they click goes to another word, and then they can have their camera up and show their face or show you the emoji on something. And so we just have to think a little bit differently about how to do things. But most of these activities can be replicated to work whether you're in person or distance learning with students. And then I love this feelings game. The first thing I love about it is that they get to pick who they want to be. I don't know why there's not a boy, just a man, woman, and girl. But they can pick the face they want to play with, or they can pick to play with all the faces. So I'm just going to pick the woman. And when you click it, it just shows you who's afraid, and you're supposed to try to decide which one is afraid. And so if I click the wrong one, it tells me to try again until I get it right. And then if I'm sitting with a parent, a peer, an IA, or the teacher in small group practice, we can talk about, why is this one afraid? What's different about those eyebrows? If we go back here, what's different about those eyebrows of the person? And look how wide the eyes are open. And usually when we're afraid, eyes are wide open. But you might have a student say, well, I shut my eyes because I don't want to see if I'm afraid. Okay, but that's not where the typical person expresses it. And so we can get these language lessons in with our kids who have difficulty reading facial expression. So I really do love this little game for the kids to play. It's good practice for them. And my last bit of advice on this is just to use best practice. Just how you teach anything else for academics, you can teach these feeling words for social emotional learning. Do you have any questions on any of those resources before I go on? Okay. So these are two of my favorite videos, and what they help explain is the hand model of describing the brain to children. And let me see if I can, I don't know, Sarah, I want to make myself bigger instead of my screen right now. Do you know how I can do that?
I might have to default to Felicia, who's our wonderful tech person on this because I'm not so tech savvy.
Oh,
Okay.
thanks, Sarah.
Well,
Sorry.
I will drag myself to the middle at least. That won't even let me cover up my presentation with it. Okay. Well, I'm going to show you how I would do this with kids, but I'm not sure if you can see it. Okay. So if you can't, just let me know and I'll go to the video instead. I wanted to show you myself. And I'm going to introduce you to the hand model for the brain, the same way that I would my students. So yes, I'm going to treat you like you're my students right now, and you're going to play along because that's fun. We don't want to be bored while we're watching this presentation. So if you can type in the comments any reactions, or if I ask you questions, just type them in the comments to help you. Oh, good. Okay, so if you want to make the speaker bigger right now, that would be great. Thank you for the advice from somebody, because this little tiny window is going to make it difficult for you.
Yeah, perfect. If you pin the video, that'll make her bigger.
Yeah. Okay. So, boys and girls, how many of you have ever gotten really upset or really angry or felt so anxious that all you want to do is run out of the room or hide yourself and you hide your ears like that? You don't want to talk to anybody. How many have ever felt like that? Just so overwhelmed with anger or nervousness? And of course, the students would say, me. And it's like, me too. And so today I'm going to teach you about your brain and how this happens in your brain so that you can learn to control it better. Wouldn't you like to be able to control yourself? Most students are like, yes, nobody likes to be out of control. So giving them the power to know that they're going to learn something to help them kind of gets some buy-in to them. I do this in small groups. You could do it in whole class if you're a gen ed teacher, it wouldn't hurt. I just think that most of the students that I work with that have low social regulation skills need this in a small group because they probably need it repeated more. So our brain is about the size of our fist. Science tells us this. So I want you to make a fist. I just remember that this is your brain, okay? This whole fist is your brain. So your brain's inside your head, and then your head sits on your neck, right? Well, so the neck on mine is right here. It's my wrist, and the neck is going to be where my brain stem is inside. So I want you to grab your wrist and feel that. Feel how strong it is? That's the stem of your brain. And if you feel back here at the back of your head, right inside underneath your hairline, that is where your brain stem is. And so our wrist is going to be our brain stem. And then if you open up your fist, this is going to help you understand what the inside of your brain is. So here's your brain stem. And then right here where your palm is and this big part of your hand, this is the part of your brain that lets you feel emotions. This is where you feel happy or sad. And it's determined kind of by itself. You don't think about it. So if you're me and you see a snake in the grass, you feel afraid. And that happens automatic. I don't say, oh, there's a snake, I better feel afraid. I just see the snake and I get afraid. And those kind of emotions happen for everybody differently based on what you might like. If I see ice cream, I'm happy right away because I love ice cream. Okay, so this is where all of that feeling part of your brain is. The feelings come from here. And then your thumb, this little thing, in our brain is kind of folded in. It's not sticking out like this. So when it's in our brain, it's sort of inside. And this little thumb piece is called the amygdala. Can you all say that with me? Amygdala. Amygdala. Good job. It's hard. We'll get it. We'll be practicing more. The amygdala sits on top of all those feeling words. And when it's calm and happy, the feeling words stay calm. So even if I see a snake and I'm a little bit afraid, but it's far away from me, my amygdala is probably going, hey, there's a snake. And I'm like, okay, I'll walk the other way. But if I see a snake and it's really close to me and it's moving toward me, my amygdala starts going crazy and it's saying, oh, get out of here, there's a snake. And it makes me crazy in the head. It makes me want to run because I'm so afraid I can't even think anymore. Okay, and we all have an amygdala that does that. Well, what keeps our amygdala in control is this 4 fingers part of your brain. In your brain, it's folded over and protected. All of these emotions are protected by this outside part of your brain, which is the thinking part of your brain. The thinking part of your brain is what gives you time to say, that snake isn't going to come get you. You're up on a porch and it's on the ground. You don't need to freak out. But when our emotions take over and our amygdala go crazy, it flips that up and we can't think. So this part is the thinking part of our brain that helps us know how to react in a good way when we're upset or angry or scared or nervous. Our thinking brain needs to be able to work. But if our amygdala is going crazy, it flips it up and doesn't allow it to work very good. Now, inside your head, nothing really flips up. This is just to show you what it's like when it can't work because of the amygdala, okay? So we want to keep our thinking part of our brain, protecting the amygdala and emotion part of our brain so that we can react calmly and do our best to not be flipping our lids or not being able to listen to people or wanting to run around and hide, okay? So let's do it together. This is a symbol of your brain. Got your wrist to the brainstem. Good job. This is the emotion part. You can touch it. And then put your amygdala in there. We don't want it to get out of control and keep it safe inside. And so what we're going to be learning in our classes together is how we can keep the thinking part of our brain in front more often than not. Everybody gets upset once in a while. We all lose control once in a while. But our job is to be in control as much as possible. And I'm going to help you learn how to do that. So basically, that is how I would introduce the concept of this hand model of the brain to my students. It was invented by Dr. Siegel. And if you follow this link, you're going to see a video of him explaining it. And then there's another 2-minute video that does it with kind of a drawing, kind of cartoonish. And so these basically are just resources for you to look at to gain more understanding and share with your students if you think that's a better way for them to get the information. But I highly encourage you to practice it and teach it to them yourself, because they'll get it more if it's from you than from this researcher that they don't know, and they trust you more than that researcher. And as educators, we don't. So I'm just curious, had anybody heard of the hand model of the brain before today? If you could put in the chat and let me know. Some of you had. Good. Was anybody like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. That's such a cool way to describe the brain. When I first heard it, I was just like, it's so amazing. And now that I have been able to share that with students, it has been so helpful for them to know that their brain is the problem right then, that they aren't the problem. It helps them be able to say, my amygdala is out of control, or I need to get back in control. And they don't feel like everything is all their fault. So yeah, great. I love seeing the chat. A lot of you are using it. And some of you have seen it several times. Great. And a lot of you are teaching already. So that's awesome. Another thing that Dr. Siegel and then Dr. Bryson came along with him, they talk about the upstairs and downstairs part of your brain with a lot of parents. So these are 2 videos you can watch. Again, I'm not going to show those videos here. I want to make better use of our time. But it's kind of basically the same as the hand model thing, but just sounds this upstairs part now is the part that thinks, and the downstairs part is the part that feels. And they have some stair-step models they use with it. Well, thank you. I appreciate you letting me explain it well. It's nervous to do that not live because you can't see people's faces. And so some people just like the language of upstairs and downstairs along with the hand model. It makes it very complete. So I encourage you to watch that if you're not familiar with it. And then the amygdala hijack, I talked a little bit about it when I went over the hand, is so important for the kids to know. And Dr. Lori Desatel, she is out of, she's one of the universities in Indiana. My brain just stopped. I can't think which university it is. Anyway, she is a neuroscientist and she does tons of research in the area of this. And I was hearing her talk one time and she talked about a preschool class she was in. And you're thinking, how can these little 3-year-olds say amygdala? Like, it's a mouthful. But she said it didn't matter that they really could pronounce it right. They knew the language. And so she was spending a few days in a preschool class and she taught them about the amygdala hijack, which when she explains it, is that's when the little amygdala is going crazy because something's causing you to be scared or angry, and you flip your lid, is what they call it. And the amygdala is out of control. And she thought it was her first time teaching it with that young with kids. And she thought, I don't know how, Butler, thank you, Butler University. And she said when she went back the next day after teaching that lesson, this little boy came up to her and said, Miss Lori. And she said, what? And she said, my dad, his amygdala was all out of control last night. And so she's like, it doesn't matter how old you are. The language is important. There's a word for it now. So that's awesome. So, but this is a great, I am going to show this little 2-minute video. If you've not heard of the amygdala hijack before, it's neat to see. Oh, I have no idea why you don't hear sound. Well, I won't play the video then. Sorry about that. My sound is all the way up, so apparently it's not working. So you'll have to just watch that on your own time. Sorry about that. It's the kids like it because it has that reference to her dog in there. But it's basically what I said. It's scanning the environment. Your amygdala scanning the environment for anything that it should protect you from, whether it's emotionally or physical or anything. Oh, I might have to mute myself. Box to click at the bottom.
There should be a setting somewhere on the bottom. It might be underneath more or the share screen that you'll need to share your computer audio.
Important. I can't figure out how to do it. It's not that important. We'll just go on without it. Sorry about that. I guess I need to practice sharing video sound while I'm presenting. I need to figure that out. Anyway, so it's just this amygdala is scanning the environment all the time for anything that would make you afraid, angry, scared. It wants to protect you. The amygdala's job is to keep you safe. And so then it kicks in your fight, flight, freeze response. And I love that we added freeze. It used to be fight or flight, and now we say fight, flight, freeze, because so many of the kids that I worked with over about the past like 3-4 years, that freeze response to be more and more prevalent in them. And they will sit there. I had a girl who she would just pick her fingers until they would bleed. And that was the only way you could tell that she was having anxiety. She wouldn't shake. She wasn't angry. She could still respond in class, but she would just destroy herself until she could bleed. And so that was really scary as well. So showing kids videos like this to help them normalize these feelings is so important. And so I have just 3 links there that you can look at a later time. Okay, so I also love the think aloud method to model regulation. And I really find students, they think it's silly at first, just like they always think alouds are silly. But after I do them several days in a row, the students start knowing, okay, we're just going to do it. And then I hear kids telling me things. They'll come back from lunch and they'll say, Mrs. Quiff, I felt my heart beating fast, but I told myself, it's okay, I can calm down. She's not really talking about me at that table. And I didn't get angry. And I'm like, it's so wonderful. And so they need to hear the think aloud. So I just have an example of one here for you. And I've been looking all over for scenario cards like this because they'd be wonderful for it. But I haven't found a set yet. So if anybody knows of a set, I would love you to link that in the comments. This one goes like, so I just found out that my friend isn't going to come over after school like we had planned. I want to yell at her, but I won't because I want to stay friends. Wow, I'm feeling upset and disappointed. I might even be angry. I know it isn't my friend's fault, but I think I'm getting angry. Take a deep belly breath. That helped, but I need another. Okay. Now I can think a little better. I'm upset, but I'm calmer. When I see my friend, I will tell her I'm sad. She can't come over and see if we can play another day. Phew, that was hard work, but I count myself regulated. Good for me. And the kids really tie into that. And obviously these are strategies that you've been teaching them along the way, and we'll get to some of those strategies later. But the think aloud's a really important piece of what I do with my instruction. So the routines and procedures. One of my favorite things to do with self-regulation is to make a looks like, sounds like, feels like chart. Like an old-fashioned t-shirt thing. It just used to be looks like, sounds like. But the feels like needs to be there, because our kids that struggle with self-regulating, they don't even know the signs until they're out of control. And I know some of you are probably familiar with the 5-step system or the zones of regulation, and those paths that go along where their feelings get more and more intense, and they don't recognize them until they're about ready to yell at somebody or punch something or kick something. And we need to get them in a place where they can recognize these feelings before that. So sitting and having individual conversations with them, because it's not the same for everybody, is really helpful. So I'll have kids, I guess most of my experience is working with older kids. Younger kids you'd have to do differently. But I'll have kids brainstorm what it feels like when they start to get upset or when they start to get anxious, depending if anxiety or anger is the key that we need to work on for them. And then we will share what we come up with in small group, because sometimes they'll say something and their friend will go, oh yeah, that happens to me too. And sometimes they don't have the same symptoms, but they need to know what their own symptoms are, because if they can't identify their own symptoms, then they can't regulate. If they can't figure it out until they're so far out of control that they need to run a lap or hit something. So they do need a cheat sheet. They need cheat sheets with these words on them. They need cheat sheets with, what am I going to do to help myself calm down? And they need a personalized scale check for themselves. So I showed you these a little bit earlier, but I want to go a little bit more in detail with them. So I've taken these and made them in 5 colors. So then this works with middle school students, and I've done it with some 9th graders really well. And so they'll just have on their desk this sitting up, or it might say good, whatever word they want to choose there. And we don't always draw the pictures. I'll cut out things so they can pick and glue the picture that they like on it. And then this will be sitting on their desk. And then every like 5 minutes during instruction in the beginning, I would say, everybody take your emotion scale and flip it to how you're feeling now. And so sometimes it'll stay there, sometimes it'll go to blue, but blue is still good. Blue isn't bad, if you can see those. And then yellow, I have silly on one of them, and sad. Now we're getting where we might need some intervention with the yellow. And then I have orange that are getting a little bit worse. And then the pink ones, now I'm really afraid, or I'm angry and I'm out of control. And so what we want to do is get the kids to do some intervention before they get to that red card. So if they flip to the yellow or the blue cards, what I have them put on the back are items that they choose that work. So somebody might have listen to music, somebody might have get some gum, somebody might have run an errand. Whatever it is for them that gets them out of feeling like that, that's what goes the back on here. So they'll have a menu of 2 or 3 things to choose from on the back of each card. And so these actually, I'm traveling this week with my husband. He's out fishing and I'm in the Airbnb. And so I forgot to bring my set with me, my really fancy set. So you get to see my homemade really cheap set. So I took this off of some measuring cups, but you could use a twisty tie from Brad, whatever you have handy. And these are just 2 sticky notes that I stuck together back to back to make it have 2 sides on it. And I just went to the dollar store and got some really cheap sticky notes. So you can do this without a lot of money, but the kids loved this when we introduced this a couple years ago in my junior high. And they couldn't wait to get their set because it took us a while to sit with everybody and make the set they needed. We prioritized the high need kids first, but then even the kids who didn't typically need it, they wanted their set too, because everyone wanted to be they wore it on their belt loop, and it became kind of a cool thing in our school, which was interesting. Everybody wanted to have what our kids had, and half the time they're like, no, we don't want to be different. So that was interesting. So then an amygdala reset station and first aid kit is super important to have somewhere available for kids. And this is another idea I got from Lori Desautel's. And if you don't follow her, I'm going to type her name here because her last name is difficult to spell. That is her, and her website is Revelations. Can't remember it. Somebody will figure that out and put it in there for me. It's Revelation something. I am having a brain not working moment today. But she just posts about this stuff all the time. Thank you, Revelations in Education. And she has a whole set of COVID-19 resources on her website. So she's an awesome person to follow. She gives great ideas. But this amygdala reset station is her baby. And it's just a place that students can go in your classroom, or if they're at home, you can help them make a kit for at home. We made one for a student at home last year that they just took an old ice cream bucket, washed it out. They could use a shoebox. It doesn't matter, just that it has the things in it that they need when they need to regulate themselves. So it might have some fidgets in it. It might have a piece of cloth that's calming to them. It might have their favorite CD in it, or CD, now I'm aging myself, MP3 player with some downloads on it that they like. Some of mine have a massager in theirs because the vibration is helpful to them to calm down. And there's like some kind of snack in there that they can go and get if they need to. In my classroom, I have coloring pages that they can get. Just so many options that they find something that works to calm them down. And I have this, I'm going to give you these examples I have, and then don't forget the Toasty O's. And that's a Lori Desautel's thing. So for the last 3 years of my classroom, since I heard this idea from her, I've had the generic Cheerios, which were called the Toasty O's, in my classroom, available to kids all the time. They're available to anybody who wants them, and there's just a sign over there that says, take what you want, I trust, or no, take what you need, I trust you. And some of the kids that we work with have never had anybody tell them they trust them. And so that's really amazing. When I switched to my new alternative school, I had a 8th grade boy who came in, and he was just doing a visit in the room before he started the program. And he came up and asked me, he said, you really trust everybody in here? And he had issues with stealing, which is why he was looking at alternative ed. And so the idea that somebody would trust him and didn't even know him was amazing to him. And I tell you what, he never abused that little trust station. On my trust station, there's water in cups because our drinking fountains had the most horrendous orange water coming out of them. And basically just the Toastios with little Dixie cups, and they could just get them when they wanted. Gonna have to probably package that in baggies this year for all the COVID regulations, but just having something for them, because chewing is important. It calms people, and crunching is important. There's really research that says it calms people. Do not get caught up in trying to get them a flavor they like, just the plain, because what that does is make sure only the people that need it are using it. It's not like it's so awesome, but it's secondary to the self-regulation help that it is. It also helps you provide some sort of nourishment for kids who aren't getting enough food at home. And so they take a cup, no questions asked. Nobody's allowed to ask questions. It did take me a while to upfront work with my instructional assistant and let them know, if somebody takes 4 cups, it's okay, just let me know. We're going to watch that. If it happens every day, I'm going to have some kind of conversation with them to find out why. But please don't say to them, you've already had 2 cups. So working with the other adults and getting them to that mindset was really important as well. But here are some examples of some amygdala reset stations from Lori's website. That was Dr. DeSantos. So here this teacher just has cushions on top, then you can pop that up and all this stuff's inside. And if all you have is a corner, just a big container with stuff in it, that's all you need to have. It doesn't have to be fancy. Some people have a whole area. They have room for an area. They've got some comfy furniture and things. I was lucky enough to have enough room in my previous school where we had a swing that kids used. And so that was nice. And then there's questions to help you set this up for your kids. The things that are going to help them, what do they need, and all of that. So this is a really nice handout that's linked in my presentation. Encourage you to look closer at it. And Lori also has a free webinar that you can register for on Presence Learning that she does with Clay Whitehead, and he moderates it and she does the presentation. And it's a really good training. If you've never heard Lori speak about anything, I would highly encourage you to sign up for that because it's free. And then I've linked to the example procedures that I used in my classroom with students. So you just have an example of how I did that and how, oops, that's not gonna work. I'll just start presenting this one. And here's a little trick if you don't know this. I'm just clicking to the end of my link and I can back up and delete everything up to the word edit and type present there. And then it presents it in that tab instead of taking over my whole screen. So kind of a wow moment when I found that out about 2 months ago, but it makes life a lot easier when you're presenting. So my students will come up to an adult and they would grab a folder that we had that had some resources in it. And so they would get their check-in sheet and they would point to how they're feeling right now if they weren't able to talk. And then they would get strategies to reset their amygdala chart. So in my room, we had brainstormed if you're feeling a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what are some things that would help you get back to a 1? Sorry, a 2, 3, 4, 5. What could get you feeling back to a 2 or a 1? And so they had lists to choose from in the room. And the IA or whoever's in charge at that time would set a 5-minute timer and record on a brain dump form everything that the student would say if they would talk. Some just dump, 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 dump. Some didn't say a word. And that was a safe time for a student because whether the student is right or wrong, that somebody wronged them, if they feel like they're wrong, they need a way to be able to get that out safely. So we didn't encourage bashing of anybody, but if they said, well, Mrs. So-and-so just hates me and she needs to get a new job during that dump time, that was okay. We're going to debrief it later. It's not okay to bash on staff, to bash on other students, whatever it is. But sometimes they have to get their feelings out to be able to move forward. So it's a safe place for them to say, and we would make note so that we could compare if things were repetitive and how we could intervene in that. And then when the timer was up, they would be asked, are you okay now? Or do you want to talk? If they're okay, do you want to talk? If no, we just return them to class. We don't require them to debrief at that point. All of that goes to the teacher of record so that it can be debriefed at a time when the student is calm. And if the student wants to debrief it right away, great. But it really has to be when they're ready because we don't want to re-escalate somebody that we just calmed down. And so if they can't point to a 1 or 2 at the end of 2 sessions of that, then they would get one of the special education teachers in the building to help intervene. And we documented everything. And then this is the chart they had when they came in. They would check in and circle or point to how they were feeling. And when they checked out, they would circle or point to that as well. And then these were some of the things that my students brainstormed based on how they were feeling, what might be the most help for them. And then these are just some examples of the 5-point scale. That's what you used at my school. And this one, the kids kind of liked it more for the anger. And this one seemed to do better if they were a student who felt anxiety. So we just had 2 different ones that we used. And you have access to that document in here. Oh, thank you, somebody, for linking the website. Appreciate that. Anybody have any questions before I move forward? We're down to about 10 minutes. Okay, so How will students know when they're regulated again? And that's part of that check-in procedure. I'm not going to go over this again because I just walked through it. They're going to be able to check out okay, or they're not, and then we make decisions based on that. And the tools, here's the fun part. So there's this is a video where the lady teaches deep belly breathing, which is just a little bit more than just breathing and making sure your belly is filled up. It's an actual procedure she teaches for it. And then 5-finger or figure 8 breathing is a strategy we teach our kids. And figure 8 breathing, you just breathe out on the way down, in on the way up. So and then 5-finger breathing, you breathe in on the way up, out on the way down. And so, and you teach them to go slowly. So they breathe out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And with both of these strategies, the idea is if you're focusing on what your finger is doing while you're breathing, then your brain's not able to think about, oh my gosh, Johnny just bumped into me in the hall, or I know he looked at me with the evil eye and I got to get him back. So getting your brain on something else is important with those breathing methods. And then some of the kids just like different kind of fidgets to distract them and help them re-regulate. And so they would have, gosh, it's everything like this is going to have to be rethought this year, but they're going to have 2 or so of their own fidgets in a special place that only they use. And then they can just get them out when they need them if they get to that yellow feeling place on here. A fidget is something that quickly will do that. The breathing will quickly do that at your seat without disrupting anybody else. And then if they are getting a little more dysregulated, then they might need to move away, ask to get a drink, run an errand, something like that. And then this is a site that is teaching the importance of positive self-talk and positive affirmation. Again, I don't have time to show you all of these, but I hope you go to the links later if you're looking for ideas. Some of my students would bring a favorite photo, something they like to smell, or a texture, and have it in their little box of supplies so that they could just use that whenever they wanted to. And there is a lot of importance to getting enough sleep to helping kids be able to self-regulate and get the thinking part of their brain back in control. Visualization is something that helps some kids. Hand massaging, and that video teaches you a specific way to put some massage. They can massage their own hand to get themselves back in sync. And then using pressure point. There's also something new that I've been looking at called tapping. And I don't know if anybody has checked into that. If you have and used it, I'd love you to put something in the comments. It looks very interesting. And if you search tapping for anxiety, you'll see all kinds of websites that are teaching you how to do this. I haven't researched it enough to share a site that I thought was valid because I just became aware of it. Oh, good, somebody's saying that yes, and we should try it. So all of those things, it's amazing because really it's about getting your brain to think about something else than what's upsetting you. And we really can trick our brain into getting back into control. Then there are calming apps that we would load on the kids' iPads. If they had those, we actually had in our special ed some, we got, those things, not a phone, like an MP3, but it's not called that though. It's oh my goodness, my tongue is so tied today. iPods, there we go. It's not an iPod, it's an iPod. The iPods were cheaper than getting phones. And so we were able with our special education department to get a set of 20 iPods. And so we would have them check out an iPod if that was something with the apps they wanted to use. Oh, good. And somebody put there's a tapping solution app that you can load on there too. So that would be great for the kids too. And we were able to buy subscriptions for some of the kids for the Stop, Breathe, Think Out, because then it would save what they liked and what worked for them. But without it was like $3 a student or something like that. And then the free version just doesn't store their data. They can get to a lot of the stuff and do it. Good for teachers as well, definitely, because we all need help with our regulating, that's for sure. And then these are just some other things that would help some of my students regulate: the coloring and drawing, music, exercise. We talked about that amygdala first aid kit, visual timers. water, those things you shake, they have water in them and then they drip down. They're not really a timer, but my kids love to watch that. And I had several kids last year who just wanted to watch funny videos that we would set a timer for 5 minutes and they would watch funny videos. And then the emotion cards, that's part talking about the flip books and things and letting kids do with that. And these are affordable and free regulation tools. So emotional monsters, let me see what we're doing on time. We have like 3 minutes. So I'm not going to click on these, but for younger kids, there's a dragon, a robot, and a monster where you put a different head on them and they have a different face to show how they're feeling. And so with little kids, they have fun with those things. This is how you can make your own calm down bottles, like with the glitter and the stuff that floats through it to help kids calm down. And 11, do-it-yourself fidgets on a budget, all cheap stuff. My classroom was loaded with stuff from garage sales, family and friends, and Goodwill. Again, in the days post-COVID, we have to be careful about anything like that. We got a note today from our school saying we can't bring anything in the school didn't buy because they won't have time to clean it. And so it's going to be interesting to see these kids that need these tools for calm down, what we're going to be able to do for them. We're going to have to be able to be creative and find ways still to help them. And then NIER, I don't know if I'm saying it right, NAIER is very, very, very discounted items for people in nonprofits. So teachers can sign up for it individually, but your school can too. I got 50 fidget spinners for like $5 one time after they weren't so popular anymore, but my kids still like them. So you can get lots of stuff there. And then ask. I always say ask because the worst you get is no, and you're no worse off than you were before you got the no. But if you get a yes, you'll be so much better. And then don't forget yourself, because educators need self-regulation as well, because co-regulation is key to helping everyone stay regulated. We all know that, but sometimes it's so hard to forget. But dysregulated adults equal dysregulated kids. So have a staff first aid station as well. So in our teacher's lounge, we started some things when we put some little smelly lotions in there and some snacks, and we would just keep that. And so people could go there in that bucket and get a little smile. And switch adults if you're dysregulated. If you feel yourself becoming dysregulated, have a plan in place where you can push a button, send a student, whatever it is, and switch the adult out. If the student can't get under control and they're causing you to dysregulate, because let's face it, we all have good days and bad days. We don't want to add to that problem. And sometimes the best solution is to switch the adult. And so we have about 30 seconds or so. There's not really time for questions. If you have one, pop it in there quick, I'll try. And then here's where you're supposed to go to do your evaluation. And I thank you so much for spending time with me today.
And thank you, Kara, for offering. Yeah, thank you for offering your time and your knowledge to present and to inform everyone. I also want to say a huge thank you to IUSA and Indiana IEP Resource Center for partnering with us in the creation and logistics of this amazing event. And thank you to the Department of Ed for their promotion of the event so that we could get literally hundreds of people across the state to attend our first annual Blitz. Like Kara said, please either take a picture of the QR code or click the link to the evaluation so that we can gain your thoughts and insight. And if you need me to put that into the chat, just let me know. Oh, yep, Deborah, I'll link both of those in here in a second.
Yes, that would be helpful.
Okay.
I love these comments flying through. Thank you. I appreciate all the kind words. This one, let's see, Sarah Bailey, she put that their staff lounge was reset and remodeled to a beach theme. How fun! That would, because we need a place to go. That's for sure. Thank you. I work hard to present well, so I appreciate that. And if you want anything else, please feel free to email, tweet at me. If I forgot something, I'll figure it out.
All right, and both of those links are in there now.
So I'm going to stop presenting now.
And we have one more breakout session for the rest of the evening if you'd like to attend. And then we have our panels, our panelists, a couple superintendents teachers, Christy Berger from the Department of Ed, who will be talking about and answering questions in regards to SEL and equity from 5:50 to 6:30. I know it's been a long day, but everything's recorded too. So if you can't make it, look for an email from somebody on the SEBW team for a link to all those recordings.
So are they going to email us the recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We probably won't get it out today.
Oh, I mean,
but Friday or next week.
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Sarah's shouting out to a course she's taking from me. And I actually have a self-regulation course starting. Actually, it started today, but it lasts for 8 weeks. So if anybody's interested in more on self-regulation, feel free to email me and I can give you information on it. Thanks, Sarah.
Alrighty. Thank you, everyone.